Grundig. The history of Grundig begins just after the Second World War. In 1945, entrepreneur Max Grundig opened a small company in Fürth, Bavaria, to produce electrical appliances. Initially, the company, known as Radiovertrieb Fürth Grundig and Wurzer, sold and repaired radio equipment. Post-war Germany was in dire need of affordable radios, and Grundig saw a chance. Already in 1946, he produced his first radio receiver kit called the Heinzelmann, German for houseboy. It was a unique move. The receiver was sold as an assembly kit and was supplied without radio tubes, which made it possible to avoid the strict post-war Allied restrictions on the production of ready-made radio devices. Buyers themselves fitted the Heinzelmann with the necessary parts, turning it into a fully functional device. The Heinzelmann was a simple wooden box with three large black handles on the front panel. Despite its primitive appearance, this receiver could pick up radio signals from all over Europe. The model was an instant hit with the public. By 1948, more than 10,000 of these sets had been sold. In fact, the Heinzelmann became Grundig's first bestseller and laid the foundation of the company's reputation. In July 1948, Max Grundig officially registered Grundig Radio Work and began full-scale production of radio equipment. His ambitions were great. From the very beginning he declared his intention to make Grundig the #1 manufacturer in the radio market. And these plans began to materialize. By 1952, the total production of Grundig radios had already exceeded 1 million units, an impressive achievement for a young company. One of the key models of the early post-war years was the Grundig Boy, or Grundig Portable Boy, produced around 1950. It was one of the first battery-powered portable radios in Europe. The Grundig Boy weighed several kilograms, but was considered compact by the standards of the time. It allowed listening to local and foreign stations outside the home, which was a novelty for the general public. In the early 1950s, Grundig grew rapidly, transforming from a small firm into an industrial giant. By 1952, the company had already become the largest manufacturer of radio receivers in Europe. It was during this period that many innovative products were launched. For example, Grundig was one of the first to produce FM VHF radios, bringing clearer sound and new radio stations to European listeners. In 1953, the company introduced the first West German television set. Grundig produced its own model of television receiver shortly after regular TV broadcasting began. The Grundig television set of 1953 became the starting point for a new line of business, home television. At the same time, the company continued to strengthen its position in audio. In the mid-50s, Grundig became famous for its tape recorders. By 1955, the company had already become the world's largest manufacturer of reel-to-reel tape recorders. One of the popular models of that time, Grundig TK5 tape recorder, released in 1953, was designed for amateur sound recording and quickly gained recognition due to its reliability. In 1957, Grundig opened the world's largest tape recorder factory in Bayreuth, which enabled it to expand production at a rapid pace. This factory produced not only household tape recorders, but also portable voice recorders of the Stenoret series, another Grundig innovation of those years. The first Grundig Stenoret dictaphone appeared in 1954 and in a way anticipated the era of office dictaphones. It had a green casing and was nicknamed Froggy by employees for its color. 3 years after the launch of voice recorders, Grundig inaugurated in Bayreuth the largest tape recorder factory in the world, a symbol of the company's achievements in sound recording. Grundig radios of the 1950s, combinations of radio and turntable designed in the form of wooden cabinets, deserve a mention. The company introduced in them the 3D clang technology, a special acoustic scheme of speaker placement which created a sense of surround sound. Grundig music cabinets with three-dimensional sound became a prestigious attribute of the middle class in Germany. For example, the Grundig 7080 radio, 1955, already offered 2 speakers for a wide stereo panorama, At a time when stereo sound was just emerging, this was a cutting-edge solution. In parallel, the line of portable radios grew. The Boy series models, as successors of the first Grundig Boy, evolved into the more powerful Concert Boy, Melody Boy, Ocean Boy, designed to receive both VHF and long-medium wave. These portable units weighed less and were equipped with telescopic antennas. The success within Germany allowed Grundig to enter foreign markets. Already by the late 1950s, exports accounted for a significant share of the business. The company adapted its products to different standards. For example, versions of radios for the USA were produced under the brand name Grundig Majestic, a joint brand with the American company Wilcox Gay. Grundig equipment became a desirable commodity in the socialist camp countries. In the USSR, the products were sold for checks in Vnesh Pozeltorg, a special system of shops for trade in imported goods. In the Soviet Union, owning a German Grundig television set or tape recorder was considered a sign of wealth and good fortune. By the end of the 1950s, Grundig staff and product range had grown to unprecedented levels. If in 1948 Max Grundig had 45 employees, by 1956 the number of workers exceeded 12,000, and by 1959 it reached 26,000 people. In the first post-war decades, about 7 million Grundig devices, from radios to voice recorders, came off the assembly lines. The company acquired smaller firms, radio manufacturers Lumafon, 1951, Telefunken factory in Dachau, 1956, Tunfunk, 1964, Kaiser, 1969, and even the Austrian company Minerva. These acquisitions allowed for line extensions and different brands under the Grundig umbrella, sometimes releasing similar models under different names to cover a larger market. During the 1960s, Grundig continued to maintain its leadership and explore new areas of electronics. By 1960, the company employed 30,000 people. Starting the decade with a strong foundation, Grundig surprised the market with innovations every year. By the mid-60s, Grundig began to try to enter the young hi-fi technology market. The company released an all-transistor hi-fi amplifier and its first stereo hi-fi receiver. This marked a shift from tube technology to modern transistor technology and a desire to compete in the high-end audio segment. Grundig offered modular stereo systems, allowing customers to combine components, amplifiers, tuners, speakers, to their liking. Perhaps the main achievement of that era was the transition to color television. In 1967, color television broadcasting was officially launched in Germany, and Grundig was among the pioneers. Already at the end of the 60s, it started producing color TV sets of its own design. One of the first models was the Grundig Super Color TV, circa 1968, whose sales showed that German families were ready to pay for the new technology. Grundig engineers also experimented with increasing the sharpness of the picture. In 1962, the company demonstrated a prototype of a TV set with an increased resolution of 875 lines, in fact, a prototype of future HD standards. Although this standard did not become widespread, the very fact of such a development shows the high scientific and technical potential of the company. By the end of the 1960s, in addition to its headquarters in Germany, Grundig had built up a whole network of factories abroad. In 1965, production facilities were opened in Braga, Portugal. Then there were plants in Italy and in France. Grundig was becoming a true transnational company, although the main development centers were still in Nuremberg and Fürth. In 1969, Grundig engineers developed the technology of leakage cable, wireless transmission of video signal between mobile and stationary parts of the TV system, which found application in professional studios. By the early 1970s, the company had formed the Grundig City area, a complex of office and service buildings in Nuremberg that symbolized the scale of its presence. The mid-1970s were the peak of Grundig's power. The figures are impressive. By 1979, Grundig employed about 38,000 people in 30 factories worldwide, with an annual turnover approaching 3 billion German marks. The product range of the 70s was extremely wide. From portable cassette players to solid stationary reel-to-reel decks and stereo systems. For example, the Grundig C100 boombox, 1975, combined radio and cassette recorder in a portable form factor, competing with Japanese brands in the nascent boombox market. At the same time, the company offered elegant speakers and loudspeakers, including the famous Audiorama spherical speakers, released around 1970, spherical loudspeakers on stands that became a design icon. Grundig was particularly famous for its satellite series of high-end radios. Grundig satellite models allowed to receive radio stations from all over the world with high sensitivity and selectivity. In 1976, the Grundig Satellite 2100 was released, a large portable receiver with a numerical tuning scale, separate band scales and support for dozens of shortwave subbands. This model is recognized by amateur radio operators all over the world for its reliability and excellent receiving performance. The Grundig Satellite 2100 is still in demand among retro collectors, as are the later Satellite 3000 and the legendary Satellite 650 Professional from the late 1980s. However, in the shadow of the coming technological wars and price competition, the successes of the 70s turned out to be the last upsurge before a difficult period. The early 1980s were a turning point for Grundig. Faced with new challenges, the company made several strategic mistakes that undermined its position. One of these mistakes was the reliance on the proprietary Video 2000 VCR format. Together with Philips, Grundig developed the V2000 video cassette system in 1979 in an attempt to compete with the VHS, JVC, and Betamax, Sony, formats. Technically, Video 2000 was very interesting. The cassette had two sides, it could be turned over like an audio cassette, which doubled the recording time. The format included other innovations, but it was only available for PAL-SECOM standards and was sold mainly in Europe, South Africa, and Argentina. In 1978, Grundig introduced the luxury TVs with 82 cm and 95 cm screens, some of the largest on the market at that time. Moreover, in 1978, Grundig's VCRs began production in a new factory, marking the company's entry into the promising home video market. In those years, Grundig tried to compete on an equal footing with powerful Japanese corporations, and sometimes it succeeded through innovation. The main breakthrough was the Grundig Super Color 100 Hz in 1986, the world's first mass-produced TV set with 100 Hz frequency rate, which got rid of screen flicker. Unfortunately, despite the innovations and advanced televisions, the main project, Video 2000 format, did not become a commercial success. The format lost the battle to VHS. By the mid-1980s, the project had to be scrapped, but time and money had already been lost. At the same time, competition from Japanese manufacturers intensified. The Japanese developed rapidly, offering good quality technology at noticeably lower prices. For Grundig, which produced its main products in Germany with at high costs, a price war began, and it was difficult to win. To fight the crisis, Grundig tried to reorient itself and renew its image. In the second half of the 80s, several interesting premium products appeared. For example, an elite line of audio equipment Fine Arts by Grundig was launched, high-quality equipment for audiophiles, designed to compete with the world's best hi-fi brands. Fine Arts amplifiers, tuners, and turntables were characterized by minimalist design and improved performance. At the same time, Grundig launched a series of devices designed by F.A. Porsche, the legendary Porsche Design Bureau. Stylish TVs and car stereos by design by Porsche, such as the stylish, streamlined Grundig Porsche TV. These moves were an attempt to keep the brand in the premium segment and attract discerning customers. That's not to say that the 1980s were a solid black streak. During these years, the company carried out a major restructuring and established the production of VHS VCRs. It seemed that Grundig was beginning to overcome the crisis. However, the structural problems did not go away. The electronics market was becoming more and more global. Huge investments in new technologies, PCs, digital video, and CD players were required, and it was difficult for single European companies to compete with the Asian giants. Max Grundig had already retired. In 1984, he sold the company to Philips in the Netherlands. And in 1989, at the age of 81, Grundig died, having witnessed only the initial stages of the transformation of his company. Under the wing of Philips, Grundig entered the 1990s relatively stabilized, but having lost its former independence. Philips had initially increased its stake in Grundig since the late 1970s, and by 1993 it was in full control of the company. The Dutch corporation saw Grundig as an opportunity to strengthen its position in Europe, but the symbiosis between the two manufacturers was not easy. In the first half of the 90s, Philips and Grundig attempted to focus on key products, TVs, audio, video, and get rid of non-core assets. The professional equipment and office equipment divisions were closed or sold. Nevertheless, competition with Asian brands only intensified, and even the support of Philips did not guarantee success. By the mid-90s, Grundig again plunged into losses. In 1996, Philips decided to stop actively financing the German subsidiary. It was announced that Philips would relinquish control and remain only a passive shareholder, limiting its liability for debts. The breakdown of the relationship was formalized in 1997. Philips finally withdrew from the management of Grundig. Thus, in 1997, Philips put Grundig up for sale, in effect admitting defeat of its attempts to revive the brand. German authorities and business structures did not want to let the legendary brand disappear completely. Initially, the controlling stake of Grundig was transferred to a consortium of Bavarian banks with the support of the state of Bavaria. Then a private investor was found. In 2000, Anton Catherine, a German industrialist, owner of Cathranewerk, a large manufacturer of antennas, acquired 89% of Grundig shares. It seemed that a strategic investor from a related industry could breathe new life into Grundig. Under Catherine's leadership, an attempt was made to restructure and look for partners abroad. Options of joint investments with Taiwanese concern Sampo and Turkish company Beko were considered. However, the negotiations came to nothing. Potential partners did not dare to invest in a loss-making business. By the early 2000s, the situation became critical. Despite cost-cutting and assistance from local authorities, Grundig continued to lose money. In April 2003, Grundig officially filed for bankruptcy. The Bavarian authorities, who controlled the bankruptcy process, tried to prevent liquidation in parts. They were looking for a buyer for the business as a whole. An external manager, bankruptcy specialist Eberhard Braun, was put in charge for the duration of the procedure. The way out was found quite quickly. Already in 2004, the rights to the brand and part of Grundig assets were bought by a joint British-Turkish investment group. For the sum of about €80 million, the company was divided between the Turkish manufacturer of home appliances Beko and the British company Alba plc, known in the segment of inexpensive electronics. The new owners relaunched the consumer electronics division under the name Grundig Intermedia, making a bid to preserve the brand in the TV, audio and consumer electronics market. At the same time, the former car audio division, Grundig Car Stereos, was sold to the American corporation Delphi. The partnership between Beko and Alba did not last long. In 2007, Alba sold its share to the Turks for $50.3 million, leaving the business. The Turkish side incorporated Grundig into its industrial giant Arçelik AS, a major manufacturer of home appliances, which also owns the Beko brand. From that moment, a new stage began, the Turkish life of Grundig. Already by 2013, Grundig brand in Europe was present not only on TVs and audio systems, but also on refrigerators, washing machines, hoovers, and even personal hygiene appliances. In fact, the Turkish concern turned Grundig into a universal brand name for consumer electronics, aiming to compete with such giants as Bosch, Siemens, LG, and Samsung. Nowadays, there is almost no real German production behind the brand. The main production is now centered on the Arslik facilities in Turkey. Grundig Elektronik AS. This is the official name of the new legal entity, which continues the history of the brand within the Turkish group. The Grundig logo can still be seen on the shelves of electronics shops around the world, but its meaning is no longer the same as it was half a century ago. It is now more of a marketing mark. The engineering innovations and developments for which the German company was famous are unfortunately a thing of the past. However, the Grundig legacy lives on in the hearts of retro enthusiasts and collectors. To this day, thousands of vintage electronics enthusiasts around the world admire Grundig's golden era technology. The memory of Grundig's golden days lives on. In museums and private collections, restored tube radios shine and bobbin recorders rustle with tapes. These devices are a testament to how powerful and innovative Grundig used to be. And although the Grundig logo is now on mass-market products, the true heritage of the brand lies in its history, in those key models and technologies that were ahead of their time and brought joy to millions of people. That is why it is worth remembering that Grundig is more than just a logo. It is a whole era in the history of electronics, gone but not forgotten. Well, now you know what happened to Grundig. Thank you very much for watching to the end. You know how to support the channel, and you can do it. Thank you all, and until the next video.